Hey guys, it is Mike with Become the Night. Welcome back to another episode of Ask a Music Snob. I'm still a little bit sick, not as bad as I was, but a little bit sick. This is the show where fucking camera's all crooked and shit. This is the show where I post a story on Instagram with an Ask Me Anything type of sticker, and you guys send in your questions to me, and I will answer them. Some of the more interesting ones are ones that I think I have a decent answer for. Go on the show. Let's jump in. Do you believe that music is good or bad, and if so, is it important? So I'm not 100% sure what you mean by the phrasing of this. I wasn't sure if you meant music as a whole was a good thing or a bad thing, or if you can judge music as good or bad. Since we'll go on the premise that just about everyone on this channel is a music lover, we're gonna go with the premise of, can you judge music as good or bad? Yeah, I believe you can judge music as good or bad for multiple reasons. I had talked about this on the the second video I did on Samurai Guitarist. He was talking about good music versus bad music. He doesn't really, as far as I remember, he doesn't really believe that that's something you can really judge. I think it is something you can judge. I think you can tell something that's more sophisticated or more poignant from something that's just kind of blasé and not as impactful. On a very basic level, someone who is more proficient on their instrument versus someone who isn't. This isn't necessarily a moral judgment. We could have that conversation. This is purely on a context of superior versus inferior. Yeah, I believe there is music that is superior to others. Does that make it useless and terrible? Not necessarily. Some of the worst music you're ever gonna hear is at a karaoke bar, and you know what? It does a lot of people a lot of good. But objectively, it's shit music. I'm not gonna go too much further into that because that's part of a whole video series I need to do a lot more research into before diving into. Is it important? Yes, I think recognizing how to judge music is important. And obviously, there's a certain amount of personal interpretation to it all, as with any art. But I think there is broadly, objectively ways you can judge things. And I think it's very important for people to be educated on this so that their lives can be more enriched and therefore pass on more enrichment to others. What guitar picks do you use? I use the signature Jim Dunlop, John Petrucci guitar picks. That's not exclusively what I use, but that's what I use for most things. I'm usually playing my Ibanez over here, and that gives me, okay, so here's the thing. I was using Dunlop Jazz 3s for a while, the skinnier kind, not the skinnier kind, the smaller kind. Those were great. They were just a little small for my hands, and also that there was a little bit of a grip issue. John Petrucci's pick is that exact same thing, just slightly thicker, slightly longer. You still have the rounded top, but more of a straighter bottom. And you have the unpolished top with his little signature insignia here. That provides better grip than the Jazz 3 pick normally would. And then you have the polished bottom, which gives you the ability to glide across strings a little easier. It's a really, really cheap pick, and for how cheap it is, honestly, the design is great. I highly recommend them, especially if you're a metal player. If you're a jazz player, you could probably use a pick like that. If you listen to my original song, Gray Matter, if you haven't, go check it out. On that song, there's a couple of acoustic guitars, with the exception of the finger-picked part in the treble acoustic guitar, the bass acoustic guitar, and the accompanying electric guitar solo are both played with this pick. Hosa is one of my sponsors, and part of their stuff that they sent me was just, some little picks with their logo on it, promotional type stuff. It's just a little Tortex pick, unpolished, and it's great. Has a nice, smooth, kind of muted tone, not as much high-end, growly type of stuff. This John Petrucci pick is going to give you a lot more growl, a lot more bite. And you're gonna laugh at me when I show you the pick that I use for my bass guitar. One of the jobs I used to do is working as a promo model for Miller Lite. I know, it's equally as hilarious to me too. One of those gigs was working Titans football games, tailgate things. There would be a whole Miller Lite tent, and we would be there at the VIP area, and two of us would be at the gate area with these little guitar picks. Game 4. Anyone who got one of these guitar picks got a free Miller Lite when they walked into that tailgate area. So every once in a while, we'd end up with a little bit extra. So because of that, I took a shit ton of them. Took a big old fat stack of them, just because I was like, fuck it, if I'm ever in a pinch and I just need a guitar pick, I'll use it. Turns out it actually works really well as both an acoustic and bass pick. I mean, it's definitely not great, but It's a lot better than some alternatives. How often do you listen to albums as opposed to just songs? Not nearly often enough, man. That's kind of one of the sad things, is people should listen to full albums more often than what they do. And a lot of times we just don't make the time for it. Some of us can't make the time for it. I really need to start instituting more dedicated music listening time just for me and not for business. What are your thoughts on people in the service industry, meaning waiters and such? Think they're all trash and need to go to hell? No, just kidding. I actually was in the service industry for quite a while. She's over 4 years. I have worked every position in a restaurant with the exception of anything having to do with management. Honestly, working in the service industry taught me a lot about hard work and what you get out of it, and it also taught me about value. I believe everyone should be required to work in the service industry bare minimum for a year before getting an actual, like, quote-unquote big boy job. The things that you learn about yourself, the things that you learn about hard work and what that's worth, and the things that you learn about other people, especially if you're working front of house, they're extremely invaluable. And I think that the years that I did spend working in the service industry were very, very, very formative for me and helped me learn a lot. People think it's easy work. It's the opposite of easy work. Why do you think rock and metal went into the background and trap and electronic pop came to the front? There's two big reasons for this. First one being rock and roll got stuck real far up its own ass between the glam days of the 80s and the early 70s, and then going into the grunge era and then re-manifesting itself as this blend with this new metal, new alternative type of sound in the early 2000s. People were just starting to recognize how angsty and stupid a lot of it was, or for that matter, just how kind of gross and self-centered a lot of it was. And then to be more commercialized and more broad-banded, it started fusing itself into country, and that's kind of where everything went to. As far as why trap and electronic came to the front, and we're gonna take away trap and say more broadly hip-hop and electronic type music. Partly because it's easily digestible for the most part. I mean, you can make hip-hop that's very complicated, but most of the stuff out there, very easily digestible. They're all very lyrics-centric songs, and one of the things that is lowest common denominator is making something singable or something that you can follow along with. And the most important thing, it is so much lower production cost, both in resources, time, and just pure money to make just about any electronic song versus a rock song. What was your motivation when you decided to leave your day job to start the YouTube channel? So I didn't leave my day job and decided to start a YouTube channel. I had been working both a day job, a side job, and my YouTube channel for 3 years, something like that. So if you're asking why I quit my day job and decided to go full time into my YouTube channel, the motivation was this. I am a pretty damn talented person, and my biggest fault is the fact that I don't utilize my own potential enough. Could be my ego too. We'll see. Either way, I had an opportunity to take a high visibility position at the job that I was at that also would have been essentially a promotion for me. And I didn't have the skills already to just go and interview and get it. It would have had to have taken some extra work on my part to prepare myself for that interview. On top of which, when I would get that job, it would probably mean a lot more hard work outside of normal business hours. And it certainly would be more emotionally and mentally draining. So all of the times that I should have been prepping for this job interview, I found myself doing music and doing YouTube. And I kind of had the thought I should be prepping for this interview. And then the double back question, but should I? The company that I worked at is comprised of a lot of different teams that work for different companies that hire us. My team was getting dissolved, so I had a choice, go to a new team, or is this the time? And I really thought to myself, I wasn't made to be working this fucking job. I was made to be doing music. Am I really pushing myself further? Am I really growing as a person? Am I really utilizing the skills that, I believe in God, that God gave me to the fullest if I stay at this job or if I take a shot and go for it fully? And I took a shot at it. And if it failed, I mean, I could find another job. I could find another job that probably paid more than that one. But I couldn't think of a better opportunity to take the jump. And huge fucking shout out to all of my patrons for fucking throwing the safety net out there for me. Honestly, like without you guys, this ship would be done. Be done, man. Dream Prague tour. Interesting you have that question. One of the goals that I have with this is creating like the ultimate progressive rock or progressive music in general festival. I don't want to limit it to rock. I don't want to limit it to metal. I want every progressive style of music to have a home at this festival. Obviously, I have my favorites. I would love to have Dream Theater, Opeth, Periphery, Haken, fucking Devin Townsend, Stephen Porcupine Tree. Are they even still together? I don't remember. Definitely whatever iteration of Steven Wilson's happening at the time. Neil Morse. The list goes on. I would love every one of these acts to be there. It would be fucking amazing, dude. It would be so good. If you could somehow manage to get all of these people into one place at the same time, people from around the fucking globe would come to this festival. Without a doubt. Without a fucking doubt. And then Prague will no longer be just like it's a whatever, man. Like, you establish a presence. Prague has been so bad at establishing a fucking presence, man. It really needs to. It needs to no longer be afraid to shout, hey, we're fucking here, and we might be better than you. I guess that is a little pretentious when you say it out loud. But yeah, if I had a Dream Prague tour, that's kind of what it would look like. What's your problem with blast beats? So what's a blast beat? A blast beat is high velocity drumming, typically quickly interchanging a very loud snare hit with a very loud simultaneous hit of the open hi-hat with the kick drum. So it'd be a boom, 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 you know, that type of thing. Boom, 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 boom. I can't accurately do it with my mouth and my hands, but you understand. So that is essentially something that, while extremely high intensity, has very, very basic music information being delivered over an extraordinarily long period of time that basically says, I'm out in front, right in front of your face, constantly distracting you from anything else that could possibly color what you're doing. At its most basic level, it's the exact, it's like a instrumental interpretation of a sine wave. Your peak of your sine wave is the hitting of the snare, and the low of your sine wave is the kick, done over a very, very short period of time, an extreme amount of times. It's like if you asked me, what's your problem with listening to music that's just one sine wave signal constantly being played over top of anything else that might be interesting, but it's typically really fucking noisy and obnoxious anyway? That's my problem with blast beats. If you do a blast beat for a short period of time in a tasteful way, I'm fine with that. It's very easy to overdo it. It's my same criticism of people who use way the fuck too much double kick. And I mean, fucking, I believe Nabla Viscaris, I have said, is guilty of this. When you're doing 16th note or fucking 32nd note double kicks sustained for a 2-minute period, it gets old. It just numbs your ears after a while. It becomes nothing. That's my problem with it. What is something that inspired your love for music? Lots of things, but one thing that I always remember specifically. I'm the baby of the family with several years separating me from my siblings. My siblings were going to a school dance, and I was stuck at home with my parents, and I was very young. I don't even think I was in kindergarten yet. And I remember sitting there with one of my sisters, like their little shitty keyboard that they had that had some like pre-programmed songs in it and stuff. I remember thinking, I'm gonna have my own dance here since I can't go to the dance with them, because that's what you do when you're 4. So I was sitting here playing this keyboard, dancing my ass off, getting up on top of this little kids table that I had and dancing up on there. My dad's like yelling at me the whole time because I'm stressing him the fuck out. And then one of the stories I'd told before, when I got my own keyboard, I actually started being like, what if I could make something like that? Yeah, my love for music started very, very early on. I think, well, for one thing, I think I'm naturally made to kind of love it. Do you like reading books? Specifically reading? No. I wish I liked reading more. I actually kind of hate reading. I can read articles, but if it's an extended period of time I'm reading, my brain actually starts to get tired and I start to feel almost like a pressure or a tension in the very front of my brain. I guess this isn't the front of your brain right here. Maybe it's up here. I don't fucking know. Right here, like right in between my eyebrows. I took a brief diagnosis thing online. I know those aren't worth shit, but I took a brief one and they were like, what's the likelihood of you having dyslexia? And it said, I have something between like an 80 and 90% chance of having dyslexia, but you should go get evaluated by a professional to confirm. This is not an official diagnosis. So there's a very good chance I might actually have that. As an alternative to reading books, I listen to a lot of things. I listen to a lot of audiobooks, podcasts, YouTube videos, lots of shit. I absorb information all the time. So in that sense, do I like absorbing the information in books? Totally. But they're almost always nonfiction. When is a song too long, and how do you keep your listener from not being bored? A song is too long once you are done stating your idea. Your complete idea may consist of multiple ideas. As a matter of fact, any actual good song will consist of more than one idea. Once you have musically, or especially lyrically, departed from your original idea to the point where there's no constructive way of coming back to it, or there's no reason to come back to it for that matter, your song's too fucking long. Perfect example is fucking, what is it, Black Rose or some fucking shit from Morning Rise. Black Rose Immortal from Morning Rise. It's a fucking 20-minute song. I despised it. This is the band that I love, Opeth. It was a fucking awful song. That should have been broken up into bare minimum 5 different songs. But it kept dragging on and on and on. And typically I don't think I would care as much, except you guys fucking forced me to listen to it on Song Suggestion Friday, which made me that more mad about it. The idea being, by the end of the song, I wasn't understanding why the fuck we needed to start where we start and end where we end. And yes, I was very bored. If you want to keep your listener from being bored, make sure your music doesn't suck. That's the best thing I can fucking tell you. Make sure that you give them a reason to keep listening. That is the way for your music to not make people bored. They need to be incentivized to be interested. How do you make someone interested? That's up to someone's interpretation. Great way to do it though, dynamic. As a quick contrast to everything I just said, the song Octavarium is almost a half an hour long, and I fucking love that song. That beginning point, well, minus that fucking 3 minutes of just droning bullshit, even that 3 minutes of droning bullshit beginning point has a much more relatable idea to the entire journey, and then our ending point where it's like, fuck, it was worth this entire way. This almost a half an hour of listening to one fucking song. It was worth investing that time. That's the difference. Does ego have a place in music? I think it inherently has to have a place in music, sadly. When you are speaking with music, you have to speak from the ego. And if you're talking about someone being egotistical having a place in music, I mean, the more of an artiste you become and the more recognized you are, the ego is naturally going to flare up. But as far as when you create art, you have to be speaking from your ego when you create art. How's it feel to chew 5 gum? That is it this week for Ask a Music Snob. Thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you. If you like this video, you like what I do on this channel, please support me on Patreon. That is the only way I keep this my job. Be sure to check out the subreddit for Become the Night. There's a fan who's been managing this page and he wants me to keep giving it a shout out and I always keep forgetting, so I'm remembering to do it this time. Go check out the subreddit, go support the community. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook at Become the Night. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you in the next video. Rock on!